Hi everybody. Let's get set for the next session. So I'm Andrew Redaway from Renew. I'm the Sustainable House Day host, and I'm not sure if everyone can see me or not. Hopefully so. So the next session is session 8, and this is on designing inclusive and accessible housing for everyone. And the MC will be Pernille Stent from Design Button. So just to let you know, if you just joined Sustainable House Day, we've got 3 rooms going, which is another way that you can access other sessions. And Sustainable House Day, it's been going for 20 years or so, and it's run by Renew. We're a not-for-profit, member-based organisation. We've got branches around Australia, and we do a range of things from providing independent expert advice on sustainability. We publish 2 magazines. We run regular events such as Speed Date a Sustainable Expert. We act as a advocate for consumers in the energy market and to do with housing standards, and as well as organising Sustainable House Day. So I'd like to kick off the next session and hand over to Pernille and our great mix of panellists. Thanks.
Hi all, thank you so much for being here. I'd like to start with acknowledging the Wadanda custodians on the land where I work and live. I do pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. Thank you so much for that, Andrew. So I'm super excited. We're going to talk about designing inclusive and accessible housing for everyone. I think it's so incredibly important for sustainability. It's smart. I believe that increases the value of our homes if they are designed with this in mind. So personally, I'm super passionate about this subject. My background, I've been a building designer now for about 14 years. I actually started out and spent my first 8 years with Griffith Morris at Solar Dwellings, which I'm eternally grateful for. Sustainability, here we are. I love this day so much. So without much further ado, I would like to introduce our lovely panelists. So I think we'll start with a tiny footprint, Chris Wenban.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm currently in a tiny house, but it's not the tiny house that I'm here to talk about. So my company, Tiny Footprint, tiny house building company, we built a tiny house for an 82-year-old lady who had some mobility problems. So it was really designing something around a specific requirement, but in a very, very small manner. So tiny houses on wheels, which I'm sure a few of you will have seen in the media, and I'll put some links in the chat as well. We've actually had a video done on this tiny house that was 7.2 meters by 2.5 meters with an indoor-outdoor extension and ramp so that Merle, who lived in the house, could access it quite easily, move around. And the interesting thing was that she has a lift bed. So the house is so small, she doesn't have a bedroom, but we architected a bed that could actually raise up during the day when she didn't need it, and then come down and sit over her sort of lounge area at night so that she could sleep in her bed. But she essentially sort of lived in this beautiful outdoor, indoor-outdoor room with fly screens and cafe blinds, looking out onto her daughter's 50-acre paddock where the kangaroos would hop past. So I will put that video up that you can go and see later on, that Bryce Langston did on his Living Big in a Tiny House YouTube channel. It's very interesting, and you'll see Merle talk about her own house. Thank you.
That is so exciting, Chris. I'm just loving hearing tiny house living and universal access. It's amazing. I'm very intrigued and I will have a closer look myself. I just quickly, before we go on to the next panelist, I just wanted to say for anyone that is participating and listening in, please, 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 if you've got questions, do use the Q&A rather than the chat. So the chat line is more for the panelists where they can provide links and so forth, like Chris has just done, I believe. So yeah, please, for any questions, do use the Q&A and I shall try to get to them and pass them around the panelists. So thank you. So next panelist will be Jennifer Wetselaar from Backyard Retirement. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, welcome to everybody. 4 years ago, I built a generous sized granny flat in a backyard in inner Canberra. It's energy rated 8 and solar passive, and it's a very comfortable home. And I hope it'll be my last home. And I included as many aging in place features as I could afford on a very modest budget. I've got a really pragmatic approach to sustainable housing, and I've ended up with an economic home that I hope I don't have to change very much at all. I mightn't use any of the features that I've included in it, but thoughtful design shouldn't cost extra when you're building a home. I used a few resources, including the Livable Housing Design Guidelines and also the existing house on the block. I've fully renovated for my sister to care for my demented mother. So I've done not only a new build to accessible guidelines, but also renovated an ex-government house in Canberra for dementia care. And I used a really good document called A Way to Stay, Home Modification Assessment and Planning Tool, which was a great help. And I designed my house with a lot of the standard accessible guidelines. The one thing that I didn't find in all the guidelines about accessibility was my design of a 3-way sliding door in the bedrooms, and I put that both in the renovation as well as in the new build. And the carers and the ambulance officers have been very excited about that because it gives me huge turning space, lots of extra room to get in and out of the bedrooms. And I designed the house so that the funeral director wouldn't have to do anything other than just roll from the driveway all the way into my bedroom and pick me up and take me away. So my home is very, very comfortable, and I hope that it'll see me out until I die. Thank you.
Beautiful. I must say, Jennifer, I think your home is absolutely exquisite. It's really, really beautiful. So thank you for that. Next panelist is Carroll Graham from Kirrawee Duplex, sorry. Welcome, Carroll.
Hello, this is my husband Nick, who's also here with me. So our aim was to create sustainable accommodation for both us and for our daughter who has a disability. And so we ended up, because we liked the area which we live in, which is southern Sydney, we ended up building a duplex on the block that we already owned. And ultimately, the houses can be subdivided so that each house could be sold off independently when that's needed. But in the meantime, we just live in a kind of a communal space. You can see from one of the photos, we've got a large communal veggie garden there in the back. And we designed accessibility features in, such as Jennifer has too, the wide doorways and hallways, lever handles on all the doors, power points and light switches at accessible heights, and having a large turning circle in the main bathroom and also in the kitchen to allow, if we're in a wheelchair, we can still get around in the house there. One of the issues for us was that I didn't want any threshold steps anywhere. So we actually had to get special sliding glass doors designed that were double glazed. And we had to do excavation so that the driveway slope was wheelchair compatible. We ended up with a retaining wall where you can, I guess, see that in the photo with the garden. There's a retaining wall and the garden's up on that. But when needed, we can actually build a ramp going from the garden down between the two homes. So yeah, that's our place.
Beautiful, thank you so much. So our last panelist is Stephen Palethorpe from O'Connor Dual Occupancy. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Pernille. Yeah, so I'm Steve Palethorpe. I'm joined here by my mother, Helen, and my father, Hardy. This is a dual occupancy in the north in Canberra. So we built these homes back in 2010. It's a dual occupancy, obviously. So I have my family of 5 living in one house, and my parents live in the other house. So we're very close to each other. They're built on the traditional sustainable principles. So north-facing, thermal mass, ventilation, all of those typical sustainable design principles. We have shared outdoor spaces. So we've got a shared vegetable garden, chickens, but we also have each have private spaces throughout the block. And I might hand over to Mum, to Helen, to describe some of the accessibility aspects that she's built into her place.
Oh, thanks. Yes, we designed our particular little house, it's 110 square metres, to be not only environment friendly, but also age friendly. So we built in, or asked our architect to design our wider doorways, plenty of space around our kitchen bench so we can get around. And the bathroom was very important to us so that it's got a walk-in shower. We do not have a bath, but a walk-in shower that would also be walker, wheelie and wheelchair friendly. We have paid particular attention that we don't have trip hazards anywhere in the house. We do have a piece of carpet square in our living space that is set into the floor so that it's flush with the floor, and there are no ridges and things to step over when we enter or exit the house. So those are some of the important things that we have put into it. We also put in a vacuum cleaner that is built into the house, and a vacuum area in the kitchen where we can just do our kitchen sweepings and then press a little lever and it all gets sucked out of the house. So I don't have to bend down and clean up in that fashion. So hopefully we'll be able to stay there living independently for as long as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. It's amazing to hear about, aging in home, designing, for universal accessibility, but how, a couple of the homes are actually, I suppose, multi-gen, which I think it's just such a wonderful way of living where, we're multi-generational, where kids get to be with, grandparents and so forth, and it's just not that nucleus family. I think it's a super healthy development in our Western culture, and it seems to be occurring more and more. But I do digress. So what I wanted to do very briefly was just to see if we've got any questions that I can throw at you guys. So I've got a question from Sue that is aimed at Jennifer. Jennifer, can you Please provide a link to your suggested document, A Way to Stay. Many thanks. So, Jennifer, I don't know if you might be able to provide a little link in the chat area.
I've put the name of the document. I'm a bit of a boomer. I've got it in paper, but I can probably Google search it. And yes, I don't have that easily accessible, but if you just Google A Way to Stay, Home Modification Assessment and Planning Tool, it'll come up.
Beautiful. Is there a specific, is it like a government body that it relates to, or is it like
It was a planning tool done by physiotherapists, by architects. I know it's been a couple of years since I've used both of the tools. I know the Livable Housing Design Guideline was done between community consumer groups, government and industry, and the A Way to Stay is more based at aged care. And when I was moving my mother down into the family collective, of course, my niece and her teenagers live next door. My mother and sister live in the old house, and I built my new one at the back. When I was doing the dementia guidelines, I went through the aged care process and dementia care processes. But I found that the accessible things that I did in my own home, based on me being a nurse, were reflected on what I found in the document. I made my home so that I could see the toilet from my bed. So when I get up and I'm wandering in my old age, the toilet will be there. You know, I put in a raised toilet seat already. I reinforced the walls next to the toilet. I put the toilet in the laundry, so I wasn't wasting any space. So I had a large turning circle, but I didn't have to have the toilet in the accessible bathroom. So it was an interesting journey to have done a renovation as well as a new build in the
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I thought what I would do is to mention, so I'm in WA, and we have a department here called Disabilities and Services Commission, which is now taken up by Department of Communities. So it's a government body, and they have got an absolute plethora of information for universally accessible homes and aging in place, and so forth. So I just thought I'd mention that if there's anyone on here from WA that is interested. Now, I've got another question here that I will throw out there. So there's one here from DJ Tuborek. With these homes meant to last for as long as possible, forever, do you believe all houses should be created to accessibility and inclusion standards? Or do you think it should just be a section of the housing market? So any guys out there, any other panelists that would like to answer that?
Well, I'll have a go at that. I mean, it's not that hard to build universal design into your house, particularly when you're starting from scratch. And it's just so sensible to do that because it gives flexibility to whoever lives in your house, whether it's an older person or a person with disabilities. And honestly, if you walk into our house, you wouldn't notice any of these design features as being particularly age-friendly. They're just part of the house. And it just makes so much sense to build those considerations into your house from the beginning, and they should be mandated according to my philosophy of life.
Yeah, I agree on that one. I think you're bang on. Thank you so much. So I've got another question from Chris. Oh, from Chris Moss. Oh, it's moving here. Yeah. So I got a question from Chris Moss. He's asking, can we get things like ramps that convert steps to a ramp? Would anyone like to take that?
there are lots of commercially available wheelchair ramps and those sorts of things. A lot of them are not permanent solutions, but are able to be laid into place when you have visitors. My niece has 4 or 5 stairs, and she has a friend who is in a wheelchair already. They come into our driveway and they're connected through our driveway onto the 1 level, but down in their 2-level house, they just hire a ramp for the time when their friend comes as a visitor. So certainly you can retrofit these things either temporarily or permanently if you have stairs in your home.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And Jennifer, I think this one is aimed to you as well. So I've got someone here called Tawny Frogmouth asking, if there's time, what is a 3-way sliding door?
Oh, it's just 3 I built everything in my home out of ordinary materials because I had a very small budget. It's 3 pocket doors and 2 join in the middle and 1 at 90 degrees. So the wall that joins both bedrooms is also a sliding door. So you can open it up and suddenly you have a large space. So when in my home, I never close it unless I've got someone else in the other bedroom. But it works quite well for my mother with dementia. I close her off between the bathroom and the rest of the house. So she's divided, but if somebody comes and wants to use the toilet, they can slide the other door. So it's just a very, very simple way of making a small home seem larger. And there are 2 photographs in my video tour that shows that principle.
That's great. How smart. So I think the next question would be aimed at Stephen. We're in O'Connor dual occupancy. And the question is, now this is things moving again. This is from Mona Simmons. What do the younger generation think of the dual occupancy for O'Connors?
Look, it's fantastic. It works, I think, across the 3 generations. So I have 3 teenage kids. They get regular interactions with their grandparents, which is wonderful. And we can all support each other. So it's a wonderful way for when someone's out in the garden and needs an extra hand, there's always someone around ready to help out. When it comes to things like when one of the families has been away, the other family will often have a meal prepared for the others when they come back. There are all sorts of benefits to having that multi-generational arrangement. So it's hugely beneficial.
The shared car seat?
Oh yes, so we have shared vehicles as well. So we have two vehicles for the 7 people who live on the block, and we coordinate. We have 1 electric vehicle, so a round town vehicle. We have a plug-in hybrid as our other vehicle. We simply coordinate between ourselves depending on who needs which vehicle. So it is a great cost saving as well. Because we don't have to run 3 or 4 vehicles, we save a huge amount of money. So it works on many levels.
Only positives.
Yeah, it is.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, guys. Now, Alison from Melbourne is wondering, is there extra cost in building these homes? So I'm wondering, maybe perhaps Chris or Carroll like to take this question?
Yeah, I'll jump in there just quickly. If you have a wider door, that will cost you more than a standard door, but then you're saving on the cost of the wall. Some fittings are actually cheaper. So lever handles, I found they were much cheaper than other fancy door handles. For our kitchen, I bought D-shaped handles that met the accessibility standard. Stainless steel, beautiful, long wearing. Again, they were cheaper than a standard kitchen cabinet handle. So I guess it swings and roundabouts. Some things may be a little bit more expensive, but then you can save on other aspects.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. So I think there is another question here from Jessica Murphy. And her question is, how did everyone find the cost of items that are not off the shelf standard? Well, it's a kind of similar question, but a little bit different. So yeah, she's asking, you know, for instance, the wider door or custom doors, is it more expensive or does the cost even out? I think the answer, that has been answered, hasn't it? Okay, great. So that was the end of the questions for now. So I guess one of my questions to you guys would be, what makes a universally accessible home? You know, as a builder designer for myself, the first thing that I look at when it comes to design is the structural, to always have whatever is structural, you know, wider corridors, no 90-degree hallways, larger doors that we just spoke about, recessed sills, as we also have spoke about. All of those things are structural, and if we can fit that in, obviously in the early stages, it means that, yeah, it's just less renovations later on. And I guess phase 2 then would be to look at things that are movable, you know, things like cabinetry and so forth. You know, it could be a chair for a shower. But yeah, I suppose, yeah, the question would be, you know, what makes universally accessible home to you? What would be the most important thing to consider? Where would you start? So, yeah, anyone?
I don't know about the others, but I think the bathroom is one of the places where older people always, who do not have a age-friendly house, that's where they get into trouble with the bathroom. So design the bathroom really well. One thing that I didn't mention is that our shower rail, you know, the bit that takes the water up to the shower head, is a much sturdier one than the normal one. So it's a grab rail at the same time as the device that sends the water up. So I think the bathroom is really important. And I think one of the real bonuses in our house is that we had the foresight to put in the vacuum cleaner system while the build was going on, because I don't have to store or lug a vacuum cleaner around, and it's really something that is of great benefit as you get old, not to have to worry about that and tripping over the things and all of that sort of stuff.
One of the other points about our place is, in the original design, we asked for no hallways.
Yeah.
We wanted no passageways, and I think our passageway is a door wide now, and that's about it. It leads to 2 cupboards, but it saves all those turning problems and any others.
Absolutely. Minimizing wasted space, right?
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to say I agree with having the inbuilt vacuum system. We have one too, and it's just great to use.
And they're amazing as well if we are suffering from asthma or allergies and so forth as well. I would like to add, I think, yeah, they're amazing. And Chris Wenban, for you, what is the most important thing for you that makes a universally accessible home? Would you like to answer that?
Well, I guess the house that I'm thinking of, interestingly, wasn't so universal in a way. That the thing that made it, probably makes it universal, is Mel's house is on wheels, so it is completely movable. And so really, when you look at the situation that they're in, they have a property with a normal house on it, and Mel's house is a little bit way down the paddock, so she has her own space. But it does mean that if they needed to change anything, you know, long term, they could actually change the whole house. So Merle fully intends that house is the last place she will be. And when the time comes, she's sort of said, well, you know, take the house and take it to somewhere else where somebody can make use of it. And if they wanted to then build a house or put another tiny house on wheels for the granddaughter, then they could design something completely different that would suit her. I think that's the beauty of the movable dwelling, the tiny house on wheels, is it can be very customized to anybody's specific requirements. And then when the time comes, it's no longer needed. You don't have something that's then, you know, not built or not useful for someone else. You can move it out, and then you can put something else quite specific in. So it's very much a different design concept from the other houses here, but hers was really very much customized to herself, but then it can be moved as and when it's not needed in that space.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. Thank you. So Chris Moss, guys, is also asking, is it possible to minimize the change of falls, for instance, in an existing house with a standard kitchen and bathroom? Is it possible to minimize the change of falls in an existing house with a standard kitchen and bathroom?
I think
I
they
found that one a
probably
little
meant the chance of falls, the opportunity.
Minimize the chance of. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay. Now, would you like to answer the question?
I'm not there yet. I've still got rugs in my house. I think I was absolutely inspired by the O'Connor dual occupancy. I went there first before I bought the home next to my niece and did that multi-generational stuff. So I've got to say to them that they inspired me, and to thank you for having your house open. I've seen it twice. And it was wonderful. So I'll let you talk about the falls.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, you know, one of the things where we want to minimize the risk of falls is obviously, it would be height changes. So, you know, it could be door thresholds, it could be rugs, anything like that. You just want to remove it. And, you know, in an existing home with a standard kitchen and bathroom, I would agree with Stephen's mum that, you know, it's tricky because wet areas, they really do need to be universally accessible. We don't want to have to negotiate, you know, steps into showers and so forth, or hobs, if you like. So, yeah. So if you are building new, I think it makes absolutely 100% sense to actually consider universal access, 100%. So Dorothy has got a question for Stephen's mum. Are you able to tell us the brand of the sturdy shower that you mentioned, please, or how did you find it?
Oh dear. No, we built our house nearly 10 years ago, and I would not recall. I think we went to Harvey Norman and bought it there, and it was readily available. It wasn't all that expensive, but it's really useful to have that in a house, and all, you know, to consider those things. And I just want to get back to the trip hazards. That is so important to have a really good think about where the trip hazards are and how you can do it. So we have dealt with our place with instead of having a big rug in our living space, which is all part of the open plan living, the carpet was actually built into the cement floor or the concrete floor that we put in, so that it's all smooth. And that's and similarly in the bathroom, it's just walk in, it's just all one level. And I think that's something that you can look at and really ask your designer to build in to the design of the house.
Yeah, it's a wonderful idea, actually. Thank you so much.
I'd just like to say I didn't have enough money to make all my entrances flush. So my front door couldn't be double glazed, so I made a small airlock that I use in the extremes of winter and summer, and so I could have standard sliding doors out in my, I'm pointing to my paved area outside. So if you're in a wheelchair, you can get out there very easily through standard, slightly wider doors without having to pay the extra of engineering my big sliding glass north-facing doors as being without a step. So you don't have to have it all accessible. You've just got to think about where you need to put your money in the first instance. Because my 90 square home only cost me $250,000 4 years ago. It was all I had, but I did as much as I could when I built it, so that in the long term I wouldn't have to change it.
That's a really, really good comment, Jennifer, that, you know, not all of the home has to be universally accessible, but you can actually consider parts of it. So yeah, that makes great answer. Great comment, thank you. So I think in terms of grab rails and so forth, I just wanted to add a little bit to that. I think what needs to be considered in the design phase, no matter what materials you're actually building out of, you do need to consider perhaps having reinforcement in those walls where you want to consider grab rails, you know, whether it is in a toilet or it is in a shower, around a bathtub and so forth. Now, someone also here commented that it's important that any grab rails are actually rated grab rails. Yes, I suppose, you know, in a residential scenario, it's residential. You know, we can pretty much do whatever we want, but we can't. But it's not, you know, it's not. It doesn't have to be a hospital grade, if you like. But yeah. So moving on. What about tiles? Are they rated for slipperiness? And is this a consideration for bathrooms? I think that's a very good question from Belinda Smith. Who would like to answer that one? Is that something you would...
In our house, the tiles from the kitchen, I mean, it's not a big house, but the kitchen, the living area, the hallway, the bathroom, they're all the same tiles. They are not different at all, and they're not slippery at all.
Yeah.
They're all the same surface.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a really important consideration. I don't know, everybody's been to Asia here, I think, and Bali, and those slippery tiles on the floors everywhere that are really scary.
Sorry, can I just say, when we were buying our tiles, I did look at the rating, so you can... the tiles do have ratings for slipperiness on them, and so you can select your tiles accordingly, but there are a lot of non-slippery tiles readily available.
Yeah, no, that great comment. Thank you so much, Carol.
The main floor of my home is a burnished concrete, not polished, burnished, but I made sure I had a matte non-slip sealer on it, one for solar gain from the north facing exposed, and the other for making sure that if the puppy was making a puddle somewhere where I hadn't noticed it, it wouldn't be slippery. So there are lots of reasons for not having slippery flooring.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And plus it's all a performance. The more surface, the more performance, right? Yeah, no, good comment. So Claire is wondering, what does a house with no hallways look like? I think maybe that one would be for the O'Connor dual occupancy to answer, if you wouldn't mind.
Look, I mean, it looks like a normal house. You've just got, instead of hallways joining rooms, you've got doorways joining rooms. So you'll go from one part of the house to another part through a room rather than a corridor. So to get from this room that we're in now, the sort of kitchen, living, dining open place. To get to my kids' bedroom, you go through what's effectively a music room and a TV room. So instead of having a hallway there that would lead to the bedrooms, it leads directly into where we have the piano, where we have the guitars, we've got the TV there, we've got the bookshelves there, and then beyond that is the kids' bedroom. So it effectively, I mean, there's no difference per se between a house with halls and one without, but you're maximising the use of the space by minimising those hallways that aren't, that are good for shelving, I guess, but otherwise a little bit wasted space.
Absolutely. And, it's such a great design detail to really maximizing usable space where, you can actually put, so, if you've got your bedrooms at the southern end, if you're walking through a door, from your living area facing north and then actually entering into an activity room or music room that will then have doors leading off to bedrooms. It's so smart, isn't it? Thank you so much there. Mark here is asking what considerations we're giving to avoiding hard floor surfaces, concrete tiles, etc., to minimize injuries from falls. I'm wondering, Jennifer, is that something that you will consider answering?
If you're going to fall in old age, you're going to fall. When you get on to dementia, then you wear hip protectors, those sorts of things. You're better off putting all the bang for your buck into Tai Chi, physio, staying as able-bodied as possible, using a wheelie walker rather than tottering from one surface to another. So as far as accessibility goes, smooth floor is a lot safer than rugs or large expanses of carpet. It's a lot more economic. You don't have to replace it if you have accidents. If you fall and you bleed on it, you can wipe it up. But if you bleed on a carpet, it's a pain. So I think really making yourself fit to live and accepting that you're not as strong is better than padded vinyl. I know padded vinyl is very hard for wheelchairs. Padded vinyl is a disaster. So don't do it. Just have a hard floor and stay upright as much as you can.
Great comment. Thank you so much. Now, I've got a question. I'm wondering if I want to ask a question to all you panelists, and if you wouldn't mind maybe just answering with maybe a couple of sentences or something like that, just to feed something to our participants. And the question would be, is there something in your build that you wish now, in retrospect, that you would have thought of? So starting with Chris.
I don't live in the build, so probably I couldn't answer that, but I'd like to just add on to previously what Jennifer had said, which was probably the best thing that Merle likes about her house, and it talks to the whole falling thing. Because the tiny houses are so small, you can actually put some really good quality materials in and add in some additional things. So what Merle has is in the house living area is she has underfloor heating. And when the design was being done for the house, there was an acknowledgement that a lot of people, when they do fall, it's not necessarily the fall that gets them. It's actually lying there on a cold floor in the middle of the night, which is often when people will fall, go into the bathroom. So she has underfloor heating. So if she does happen to fall, hypothermia or that heating thing isn't going to be the thing that gets her, as it were. So she has wooden floors. She doesn't have soft floors, but she does have beautiful underfloor heating, and that just adds to that safety aspect. If she does end up on the floor, she's got something that's going to give her a longer length of time and keep her comfortable until she can work out a way to get up. So that's probably what I'll say, rather than I wouldn't be able to answer for her decision. Doesn't. If you watch the video, you can see there's nothing she doesn't like about her house. She's ecstatic. So yeah, watch the video.
I would be too. It's lovely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris. I actually would like to add to that too. So Tawny Frogmouth have asked a question about cork floors, and I'd like to add to that myself. I'm currently designing a 3x2 for Witchcliff Eco Village down here in the southwest of WA. And what we have done there is that we have actually, so my client is aging and he's got a friend that is going to live with him she's nearing 80 now, and she does walk around with a stick. So yeah. So what we've done there is that we're going to put in lightly polished concrete floors in the living areas for the Passasola performance. But in the southern facing bedrooms, we are actually going to put in cork floors, and it's exactly for what you were mentioning earlier, Chris, in terms of, when we get up at night, often we can be wobbly, and if we are to fall over, then at least we're falling on a cork floor and not on hard concrete. So, and cork floors are great because they are hygienic. I do find sometimes with carpets they can be tricky to actually keep clean.
Pernille,
yes.
Sorry, just a reminder of the time, if you'd maybe wind things up.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we are nearing the end of a really lovely panel. So I wanted to ask you guys, the question then would be, is there something that you wish that you would have done in your design in retrospect? Just a sentence or two will be great if that can enlighten our participants. Thank you. So maybe Jennifer.
I'd build it all exactly the same. Perhaps I would have had more money, and I could have had thermally broken, recessed, all that sort of stuff. But I'm very, very comfortable, and I love my home, so I'm happy. No,
Beautiful.
okay.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That's great. And Carroll.
I'm like Jennifer, we're really happy with our home. It is very comfortable, it is very convenient, everything's accessible, and it really suits us. So yeah, it's great. We love it.
Well considered. Thank you so much. Stephen, is there anything that you wish in retrospect you would have done?
In our house is we would go for burnished floors, concrete floors, rather than the tiles we put in. That would be the only thing.
Yeah. And the other
Do you want to tell me quickly why? Sorry.
The tiles tend to be a bit of an insulator. They stop the sun hitting the floor and giving you and retaining as much heat as you might want. That would be it, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Burnished floors.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so sorry, Stephen's mum. You were going to say something, and I interrupted you.
What I didn't add is that we made everything we could with press buttons as much as possible. So we have some outside blinds on the eastern window, big eastern window, that's just an electrically operated blind. We also have some very big windows with honeycomb blinds that are pretty heavy, and they're also press button. And so as much as possible, we made things that we don't have to labour and pull and push and shove, so that it's all operated with little electric motors.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. I think that we need to wrap up. I think it's been an amazing session. I wanted to say a massive thank you to our wonderful panelists. And I've certainly learned something today. And again, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, Pernille, and all the panelists and everyone participating.